Hi boys and girls, my story of the week this week is going to be the smartest giant in town. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same patched up gown. I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town, he said sadly. But one day George noticed a new shop and it was full of smart clothes. So he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the sides, and some shiny black shoes. Now I am the smartest giant in town, he said. George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my neck," said the giraffe. "It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long, warm scarf." "Cheer up," said George as he took off his tie. "It didn't match my socks anyway." He wound it round the giraffe's neck and it made a wonderful scarf. "Thank you," said the giraffe. As George strode home, he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I am the smartest giant in town." George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his new white shirt. It kept coming untucked anyway. He says as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat, "It made a magnificent sail." "Thank you." George strode on and sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse and lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's our house," squeaked the mouse. "It burned down and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house." "Cheer up," said George as he took off one of his shiny shoes. "It was giving me blisters anyway," he said as the mouse and her baby scrambled inside. It made a perfect home for them. "Thank you." George had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a tiny white mouse. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George then came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sleeping bag. I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his socks. It was tickling my toes anyway. As the fox snuggled into it, it made a very fine sleeping bag. "Thank you." George hopped on and sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a tiny white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a big squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's this bog. I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his smart new belt. "It was squishing my tummy anyway," he says, and he lay it over the bog. It made an excellent path. "Thank you." The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on and sang, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a tiny white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog but was crossing a bog. But, oh no, my trousers are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town." Suddenly George felt sad and shivery and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, I'll have to go back to the shop to buy some more clothes, he decided. He turned round and hopped all the way back. But when he got there, it was closed. Oh no, cried George. He sank down to the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he met on his way home. Then, out the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out. George took a closer look. It's my gown, my dear old gown and sandals. George put them on and they felt comfortably wonderful. I'm the cosiest giant in town, he cried, and he danced back all the way home. Outside his front door stood all of the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. Come on, George, they says. Open it. George untied the ribbon. Inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. Look inside, George, said the animals. George put down his crown and opened the card. Inside it has read, your tie is a scarf for a cold draught. Your shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a tiny white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town. The end.